What's up everyone, my name is Zach and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be recommending some of my favorite fall reads. So all of these books are going to be books that I think are best served in the months of fall. However, I do love all of these books and you really could read them any time of the year, but I think that the fall is the perfect time for you to pick these up if you've been wanting to, or if you're interested in any of them after I talk about them. So I am very excited to share my fall recommendations with you all in this video. If you haven't already, subscribing to my channel helps me out a ton. A like on the video goes a long way, and I would love to hear in the comments, what are some of your favorite fall recommendations? Have you read any of these books? Are you excited to read any of these books? I just want to hear from you guys and what you're hoping to read this fall or what you've read in the past. So let's jump right into the video. I am going to briefly describe what these books are about. Just know that all of them I think are good to read in the fall because they're either cozy or horror or thriller, or good to settle in with a nice warm drink, a blanket, cloudy skies. I think cloudy skies are an integral part of fall, and just all the coziness. So at first I'm gonna break down and tell you guys about 4 romances, and then the rest are kind of a modge podge of horror, thriller, a middle grade, and a few YA. So we're gonna kind of hit a lot of different bases here, but let's get right into it. So the first book actually just released recently and has kind of taken the book world by storm, and that is My Roommate is a Vampire. I listened to this on Penguin Random House audio and I absolutely loved it. The audio is really, really good, particularly the voice for the main male character just like really adds to the humor of this book. Essentially, this is the story about a girl who rents an apartment from a guy who is a vampire, and she doesn't know that he's a vampire. She's very skeptical about why his schedule is the way that it is and why he has no pots or pans. If you've read the book, you know. If you know, you know. If you don't know yet, you should read the book and find out, because then you can be in the know, and it's hilarious. This is just a rom-com. It's very funny. There is like a lot of character development for both characters. I would say it's not super shallow, but it also doesn't go super deep. So if you're just looking for a fun, funny rom-com that has some paranormal, Halloweenish fall vibes, then like you really should read My Roommate is a Vampire. I really, really loved this book. As far as I know, it's a debut, and so I'm really excited to read whatever else this author puts out. Okay, the next set of books are kind of a 2-book situation. They're not sequels, but it's The Dead Romantics and The 7-Year Slip. I loved both of these books. This is like a ghost story, and this one is kind of like a time travel parallel universe kind of story, but they are both very heartwarming rom-coms that really touch on grief, and because of their like sort of fantastical, magical realism elements and the topics of grief, there's just something about them that like scream fall to me, and maybe also because I read both of these in fall months, just different years, that I'm feeling like they're good autumnal reads. But yeah, this is a story about writers and authors and grief. The main character has lost her father. Before you read either of these books, if you're like sensitive to grief or heavy mental health topics, please read the trigger warnings before you pick either of these up, because they are heavy-handed in these books, but they're very heartwarming and meaningful. And I loved these books so much. This one actually made me tear up at the end of it. They're heavy hitting, but you really connect to both main characters. They're also very funny at points. They're witty. The banter is very good. But yeah, time travel, parallel universe sort of situation, ghost writer and ghost and author funeral home vibes. And yeah, I just love both of these, and I recommend that you pick them up this fall if you haven't read them. Okay, the last romance recommendation I have is in the same vein as the last two, and that is The Very Secret Society for Irregular Witches. This is actually, I believe, the Fairy Loot edition. Could be a Lumicrate, but I think it's Fairy Loot. Let's have a little look-sees in case you Fairy Loot. We'll have to check out this edition. Yeah, here's what it looks like without the dust jacket. And I also was holding up the Fairy Loot edition of The Dead Romantics. I should have showed you guys a little bit more about this because it's a very pretty edition, and I'm very sad because the 7-Year Slip has sold out and people are selling it for like $180, and I just cannot justify buying that. So I will be okay with my editions not matching because I'm absolutely not paying that amount of money. Anyways, back to the point of the video, which is fall reads. Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches is all the things that I said about the other two books. I would say if you've read either of those and enjoyed it, you would enjoy this one, and vice versa. If you've read this and enjoyed it, I think you would enjoy either of those. The author's writing styles are very similar. They have very heavy-hitting topics, but a mixture of paranormal and funny and heartwarming. Like, all three of these that I've just mentioned are very heartwarming stories. This is a story about a girl who is a witch, and this is a society where witches are not out in the open, and so they have to kind of hide from view. And our main character accidentally posts a YouTube video where she kind of outs herself, and so she ends up going to this place to help raise these three girls, and they're kind of coming into their witchiness. So it's sort of a coming of age story when we're looking at the like younger ones. And then she's going through her own identity and development and growth while getting to know all of these amazing side characters. The atmosphere is very fall. And it even says on the front here, the cozy magical romance you've been waiting for. And I would say that that is true. I absolutely loved this book. And if you've been thinking about picking it up at all, please do it this fall. Okay, the next book I want to recommend is a YA dystopian novel. That is All That's Left in the World. This is a male-male romance about two guys who are teenagers who are left in a world where there's essentially no one left. It's very similar to The Walking Dead, but I believe in this one it's like a fungus, or there's not really, it's different from The Walking Dead, but it gives similar vibes. I just really love this book. It's very dark and gritty. The atmosphere is very fall-like, and yeah, I don't know, something about like the hardships that they face and the conversations that are had and the young love. I don't know, something about that just like screams fall to me. This is a very quick moving story, and it's really good. I don't think it's gotten the attention that it deserves. If you're at all interested in like post-apocalyptic stories or like pandemic type stories, this is very good. I also will say it's very heavy hitting. This is another one that you might want to consider checking out the content warnings for, but I absolutely love this book and I could not talk about it enough. Sorry, I'm kind of zooming through this. My camera is running out of battery and I really want to get this video out to you guys. So I'm going a little bit quicker than I want to, but the next book that I wanted to talk about is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. And if you're surprised that this has made it onto my list, I'm also surprised. TJ Klune is hit or miss for me. I have not read House on the Cerulean Sea yet. I do plan to read that at some point soon. This is a very cozy story about a guy who was very angry in life and he actually dies. And the in-between world, he meets all these people who are helping other people like kind of pass over. And in order to do that, there are certain things that have to be met. And it's just a wonderful, cozy story. It's also a male-male romance. There's also a lot of conversations about grief and dying and what it means to live while you're alive. This story definitely made me cry. I annotated it. And yeah, this book means a lot to me. I actually lost a pet just after reading this book. And so I think I have a special connection to it. I'm also noticing that as I talk about fall recommendations, that like grief is something that just feels very fall to me. I think it's the cloudiness of fall along with like the beautifulness of the color of the leaves and how like in life there is death and in death there is life. And there's just something so beautiful, but also difficult about that I don't know, just like makes me think cozy fall vibes. So you guys are getting a little bit more about my reading taste here that might surprise you. I don't know. Okay, the next book is a YA ghost story. That is The City of Ghosts. This is a trilogy by V.E. Schwab. This is the story about a girl who had an accident when she was younger and she can now see ghosts. The reason that you should read this and read it in the fall is because A, it's a ghost story, but also she travels around the world with her parents who are part of a paranormal ghost TV series, and her mom is very much into the ghost and believes in the paranormal, and her dad is just there for the history. And along the way, you get to meet two very prominent side characters that are two of my favorite side characters of all time. Like Jacob is a ghost who is in her life, and he's like a pocket full of sunshine that you just want to carry around with you. Very solid middle grade. I loved this whole series. Once I started reading this one, I could not stop. Actually, now that I think about it, I need to do a reread of this series. So good. The last book is really heavy hitting. They kind of ramp up as they go, but you should at least give this a try. It's a perfect fall read if you just want something that's quick but cozy and you're feeling like a middle grade ghost story. I really recommend that you check out City of Ghosts. Another book that I've talked about on my channel before, but I feel like is perfect for fall, is Simone St. James's The Sundown Motel. I read this for the first time, I think about 2 years ago, and Simone St. James has become one of my favorite thriller, horror, mystery authors. She does like all three of those at once. It's very interesting. She also throws in a lot of historical ties, though I will say this one doesn't have as many historical ties as some of her other ones that I've read, which I preferred. The audio of this is also very good. And I also need to reread this. This is essentially the story about a girl who her aunt was working at this hotel and disappeared. And years later, she goes and wants to try to figure out what happened. Her aunt, like I said, was working at this hotel. And so she goes back to try to figure out what happened. Simone St. James is the queen of dual timelines. So if you like dual timelines, and even if you don't, like, she does it really well. It's very clear. You don't get easily confused. And she just sets up a really amazing story that's spread across two timelines. It's very creepy and eerie at times. It's also a mystery at its heart. So the whole time you're getting invested with our main character, and you're also trying to figure out like what happened to her aunt. And then in the past, like, you get very connected to the aunt, which also makes you want to know more and more about what happened. Simone St. James writes really strong characters with good character development. Very atmospheric story, very creepy at times, just the perfect fall read. And then in a similar vein, The Drowning Kind by Jennifer McMahon, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her last name. This is my favorite book by this author. I've read a few of hers now, and this one stands out by far as my favorite one. I am looking forward to her book that's coming out later in October, but this is the story about a girl who really wants to have children, but is having a really hard time doing that. And she learns about a place in upstate Vermont where she can go, and there's like this wishing well, and she can make a wish, and she's hoping to do that and get pregnant. However, she's hiding this from her husband. Her husband thinks that they're just going on a romantic getaway to get away. And so that's happening in the past. And in the present, we have the story about a girl whose aunt died by suicide after appearing to go crazy about drowning and about water. And this story is just so good. It'll like kind of grab you by the throat though. Like, you kind of feel like you're suffocating with the main characters at times, but I loved that feeling because I was so invested in what was happening and I was nervous for the characters. And you do find out how the two timelines connect, but I felt like they were so different that I wasn't getting like bored. I enjoyed the switch, and I loved both characters in both timelines equally as well, which is very important for a dual timeline. This is another author that does dual timeline very, very well. If you want just an unsettling, creepy story to get you in the fall mood, check this one out, The Drowning Kind. All right, and the next book I have for you is a YA horror novel that's also very unsettling, and that is White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. This story also has a lot of commentary about mental health, about racism, about class, about moving to a new town. There's some coming of age elements to it as well. This is a story about a main character whose parents buy a house in the middle of nowhere. They want to renovate it, kind of get it back up to speed. Of course, she's from the city. She doesn't want to go to the middle of nowhere. She already has friends in her school and doesn't want to move and meet new people. But her parents are like, no, we're going to do this. It's also the story about her family and family dynamics. And there's a lot about mental health. The main character has OCD, and I feel like the representation, I'm a therapist, not that I know everything about OCD or that I am, can be the one to tell you if it's good representation or not. But before I say it's good representation, I do have a little bit of understanding about OCD and OCD treatment, and I feel like it is very good representation. This book is very creepy and unsettling. I recommend if you can get it on audio. It's very good on audio. In particular, there's one scene that I will never forget. I was driving to work and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and this still scared me. Our main character is on FaceTime with one of her friends back home, and her friend is like, oh, I thought you were home alone. And she's like, I am home alone. And her friend's like, then why did someone just walk behind you? What? Gives me chills to this day. So creepy. I cannot. Haunted house story, but with a lot of like historical context and a lot of commentary on mental health and racism. You should read this book. Unsettling, very, very good. Okay, I've been talking 80 miles a minute, and I apologize for that. I just wanted to get through this before my camera dies and tell you about all these lovely books that I want you to read this fall. But the last one that I have for you is actually going to be talked about more in an upcoming video, but I'm not sure when that video is going to be, so I decided to include it on this list. and that is One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. This might feel surprising that it's not Masters of Death, which is her newest book that just came out, which screams fall vibes, and it is on my list to read this fall. I have not yet read it. I do hope to read it soon, but I still think that One for My Enemy would be a really, really good fall read. This is a Shakespeare retelling of Romeo and Juliet, and it's about witches in modern day New York, and it is so good. Like, it is bloodthirsty, it is revengeful, it is like romantic and passionate, and oh, it is so good. There's magic and paranormal elements, but they're not difficult to understand. You're not going to get super wrapped up in like world building and confusion, and I expected that and was a little bit worried that that would happen, but it did not happen, for me at least. There were some times where I was confused, but I felt like I was supposed to be in the moment, and I wasn't supposed to quite understand what was happening, and then slowly that kind of got revealed. It is really, really good. It's pretty long, and I've heard some complaints that at times it feels a little bit repetitive, and I could see where that could be the case. And I just absolutely fell in love with the writing and the characters in the story. It is urban fantasy. Again, going back to that, you won't have to worry too much about world building because it takes place in our world. But I would say that, like, take your time with this if you do decide to pick it up. But there's something about witchy atmospheres that are very fall and cozy to me, which is why One for My Enemy made it onto this list. And I absolutely loved this book. Can we breathe now? I absolutely blew through that. I hope that you enjoyed this video and added some books that are good for fall for your list. My goal was not so much to tell you what the books were about, but to recommend books that I have already read that I think would be perfect to read in the fall. So I hope that you pick up at least one of these, or if you've read one in the past that maybe you relate to what I'm saying. I would love for you to recommend some books in the comments if you want. So before my camera dies, a very special thank you to you for watching this video, and thank you to the Mostly Ghostly crew who support my channel membership every month, where we do a Discord hangout every month. We read a book together every other month. They vote on some content, and we have a Discord channel where we talk about life and books. If you're interested in joining, I would love to have you in the channel membership. The link for that will be down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
I still can't seem to figure out when the rain came and we became a mosaic here on the ground. Baby, I can't seem to trace it. We went from weightless to dragging